You know what keeps me up at night? It's this one question that every single person on Earth has asked at some point. Where did I come from? Why am I here? What's my actual purpose? Scientists have their theories. Religions have their stories. Philosophers have their arguments. But there's one perspective that hardly anyone talks about, and it's honestly the most mind-blowing one of all. So here's what makes Buddhism different from everything else you've ever heard. The Buddha didn't spend his time making up creation myths or telling fairy tales about how some divine being snapped their fingers and made humans appear. Nope. Instead, he did something way more radical. He basically said, look, you're asking the wrong questions. Imagine this scenario with me for a second. Picture a guy who just got shot with a poisoned arrow. It's stuck right in his chest. The poison is spreading through his body. He's dying. But instead of letting the doctor pull out the arrow and treat the wound, he starts asking all these questions. Wait, who shot this arrow? What kind of wood is it made from? What type of feathers are on it? Who made it? Why did they want to hurt me? Meanwhile, he's literally dying while demanding answers to questions that don't matter. That's exactly how the Buddha saw people obsessing over the universe's beginning. He's like, you're suffering right now, today, in this moment. Why are you wasting time on questions that won't stop your suffering? Let me show you how to pull out the arrow first. But here's where it gets really interesting. Even though the Buddha wasn't about endless speculation, he actually did describe where humans come from. And trust me, it's way wilder than you think. Buddhism doesn't give you some simple linear story where everything has a neat beginning, middle, and end. Instead, it presents this massive, infinite cyclical universe that's been going through endless patterns of birth, life, death, and rebirth since forever. Yeah, you heard that right. According to Buddhism, there was no beginning, there is no end. Time itself is beginningless and infinite. Your mind is probably spinning right now, and that's totally normal. We're so used to thinking in straight lines, we want that clear starting point. But Buddhism says that's just not how reality works. The Buddha taught something called the concept of kalpas. These are time periods so unimaginably vast that our human brains can barely comprehend them. He used this wild metaphor to help people understand. He said, imagine a mountain of solid rock that's about 7 miles high and 7 miles wide. Now picture someone coming by once every 100 years and brushing this massive mountain with a tiny piece of silk cloth. Just one gentle brush every century. The amount of time it would take to completely wear down that entire mountain to nothing would still be shorter than one kalpa. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about timescales that make our entire human history look like less than a blink of an eye. And the Buddha taught that consciousness has been moving through these cycles, taking on different forms, dying, and being reborn over and over again through countless kalpas. Comment right now and tell me what time it is where you are and what part of the world you're watching this from. I want to know how far this message is reaching across the globe. So now you're probably wondering, okay, but what about the physical universe? Where did that come from? And this is where Buddhism gets really fascinating, because it actually lines up with some modern scientific theories in ways that'll blow your mind. Buddhist texts describe the universe going through these massive cycles of expansion and contraction. Sound familiar? That's basically what modern physicists talk about with the Big Bang and theories about the universe's eventual fate. But the Buddha was teaching this over 2,000 years before we had telescopes or particle accelerators. Here's how it works according to Buddhist cosmology. There comes a time when the entire physical universe contracts and dissolves. Everything solid, all the planets, stars, galaxies, everything just breaks down. And when this happens, beings don't just disappear into nothing. Instead, they're reborn in these subtle realms called Brahma worlds, where they exist as pure consciousness, self-luminous, glowing, living on joy itself rather than physical food. Then eventually, the universe begins expanding again. The physical world starts reforming, and these consciousness beings from the Brahma realm start being drawn back down into physical existence. At first, they're still radiant and light, almost like beings made of pure energy. But gradually, step by step, they become more physical, more dense, more like what we recognize as material life forms. The ancient texts describe how in the very beginning of this reformation, there's just this vast ocean of water and everything is dark. These luminous mind-made beings are floating around, sustained by joy, needing nothing physical. They can move anywhere they want just by thinking about it. They're completely free, no suffering, no physical limitations, no problems. But then something appears on the surface of the water. The texts call it Earth's essence, this sweet, fragrant, creamy substance that just forms naturally. And here's where things get really interesting from a psychological perspective. These beings get curious. They think, what is that? I wonder what it tastes like. So one brave being reaches out and tastes it, and oh man, it tastes amazing. So they eat more. Then other beings see this and they start eating it too. And this is the critical moment where everything changes. As they consume this physical substance, their glowing bodies start to lose their light. They become heavier, denser, more solid. They develop features like hands and feet and faces. And for the first time, they start noticing differences between each other. One being looks at another and thinks, I'm more beautiful than that one. Another thinks, I'm stronger. Boom, that's where conceit and comparison enter the picture. That's where ego develops. And once beings start identifying with their physical forms and comparing themselves to others, suffering begins. The texts describe how the Earth's essence eventually runs out from being overconsumpted. So then mushrooms and other fungi appear, and the beings eat those. When those run out, creepers and vines show up. The beings keep eating, keep becoming more physical, more tied to matter. Eventually rice and grains appear, but now the beings have to actually work to get food. It doesn't just appear effortlessly anymore. And this is super important because it shows that in Buddhism, the development of physical form and the development of suffering happen together. They're connected. As beings become more attached to physical things, they experience more limitation, more need, more conflict. Then gender differences start appearing. At first, these beings were neither male nor female, but as their bodies became more physical and dense, some developed male characteristics, and others developed female characteristics. And with that came sexual desire, which led to reproduction, which created even more attachment to physical existence. You see where this is going? It's not that physical existence is bad or evil. Buddhism doesn't say that. But it shows how our attachment to physical things, our identification with our bodies, our obsession with material stuff, all of this creates the conditions for suffering. Now as these beings became fully physical and had to work for resources, something else happened. They started claiming things as mine. This is my land. This is my food. This is my family. Property ownership was born. And with property came theft. With theft came conflict. With conflict came the need for rules and laws, and someone to enforce them. So the beings got together and collectively chose a leader, someone they called the Great Elect, to settle disputes and maintain order. That's how government began according to these teachings. Not from some divine mandate, but from practical necessity as beings became more selfish and competitive. Different roles emerged in society. Some people became farmers because they were good at growing food. Others became artisans and craftspeople. Others became merchants and traders. Society organized itself into these complex structures with hierarchies and different classes of people. And through all of this, the Buddha is showing us something profound. He's showing us that human society, with all its problems and conflicts and inequalities, didn't come from some outside force. It emerged naturally from our own choices, our own desires, our own karma. But here's the thing that gives me hope in all of this. The Buddha also taught that alongside this physical and social evolution, there was a moral and spiritual evolution too. As beings experienced the consequences of greed and hatred and delusion, some of them started waking up. They started asking deeper questions. They started seeking truth and understanding. Spiritual teachers appeared. Wisdom traditions developed. People started recognizing that maybe endless consumption and competition wasn't the path to happiness. Maybe there was something more. And that's where the Buddha's teaching really shines, because he's not just describing where we come from, he's showing us where we can go. He taught that even though we're shaped by countless past actions, by karma stretching back through infinite time, we're not helpless victims of fate. Right now, in this moment, we have the power to change our trajectory through the choices we make. Let me tell you why this matters so much for your life today. Understanding this bigger picture changes everything about how you see your problems and challenges. That difficult relationship you're struggling with, that job you hate, that addiction you can't shake, that anxiety that keeps you up at night. These aren't random punishments. They're not proof that you're broken or cursed. They're the result of causes and conditions, many of which go way back, but all of which can be changed through new choices. The Buddha compared it to a person caught in a current. You can't instantly teleport to the shore, but you can start swimming in that direction. Every stroke matters. Every effort counts. And eventually, you reach solid ground. And here's something that absolutely fascinates me about Buddhist cosmology. The Buddha described not just one universe, but countless world systems. Infinite universes, each going through their own cycles of expansion and contraction, each with their own beings experiencing their own journeys. This was 2,500 years ago, remember. No telescopes, no space exploration, no modern physics. Yet the Buddha described a multiverse concept that sounds remarkably similar to what theoretical physicists talk about today. The ancient texts talk about world systems beyond world systems, extending endlessly in all directions, each one impermanent, each one arising and ceasing according to natural laws and karmic causes. Modern science talks about possibly infinite universes, each potentially with different physical laws, all part of one massive multiverse. I'm not saying Buddhism predicted modern science. That's not the point. The point is that the Buddha's insight into the nature of reality, gained through deep meditation and investigation of consciousness itself, revealed truths that we're only now beginning to confirm through external observation and mathematics. And what does this mean for you? It means you're part of something incomprehensibly vast and ancient and ongoing. Your consciousness isn't new. It's been on a journey through countless forms, countless lifetimes, countless experiences, and yet right now, in this human form, you have something incredibly special. The Buddha taught that human birth is extraordinarily rare and precious. He used this amazing metaphor. Imagine the entire planet covered by ocean. Somewhere in that vast ocean, there's a wooden yoke, like a ring, floating on the surface, drifting wherever the winds and currents take it. Deep in the ocean, there's a blind turtle. This turtle surfaces for air only once every 100 years. The Buddha asked, what are the chances that when that blind turtle surfaces once a century, it would just happen to stick its head through that randomly drifting wooden ring? Pretty much impossible, right? And the Buddha said the chance of being born as a human is even rarer than that. Why is human life so special? Because beings in the higher heavenly realms are too comfortable and distracted by pleasure to seek liberation. Beings in the lower realms are too overwhelmed by suffering to practice the path. Animals lack the intellectual capacity. Ghosts are consumed by craving. Hell beings are tormented by pain. But humans, we have just the right mix. Enough suffering to motivate us to seek something better, but enough capacity and opportunity to actually do the work. We can understand complex teachings, we can practice meditation, we can cultivate wisdom and compassion, we can actually achieve liberation in a human lifetime. So if you're watching this right now, you've already won the cosmic lottery. You have this incredibly rare human birth. You have access to these teachings. You have the capacity to understand and practice them. The question is, what are you going to do with this opportunity? Because here's the truth that the Buddha wanted everyone to understand. Your origin isn't just about the past, it's intimately connected to your destiny. Where you came from and where you're going are part of the same continuous process. Every action you take right now is simultaneously the result of past causes and the cause of future results. You are not a fixed, permanent self that was created at some point and will be destroyed at another point. You're a dynamic process, a stream of consciousness and experience, constantly changing, constantly evolving, shaped by your choices and intentions. The Dhammapada, one of the most beloved Buddhist texts, puts it so clearly. It says that everything we are is the result of what we have thought. Our mind shapes our reality. If you act or speak with a confused, negative mind, suffering follows you like a cart follows the ox that pulls it. But if you act or speak with a clear, positive mind, happiness follows you like your shadow that never leaves you. This isn't just poetry, it's describing the actual mechanism of how karma works, how your intentions and actions create your experience of reality. Understanding where humans come from in the Buddhist sense means understanding this profound connection between mind and matter, between consciousness and form, between past and future. It means recognizing that you're not separate from the universe, you're an expression of it. The same processes that formed galaxies and stars also formed you. The same natural laws that govern the expansion and contraction of the cosmos also govern your breath right now. And this recognition can be incredibly liberating because it takes away that heavy burden of thinking you're somehow separate, somehow alone, somehow disconnected from everything else. You're not. You're intimately woven into the fabric of existence itself. But Buddhism doesn't stop at just describing this interconnection. It goes further and says, okay, now that you understand how this works, here's how you can use this understanding to end suffering and find genuine peace and freedom. The Buddha taught that clinging to impermanent things, including our own physical form and sense of separate self, is the root of suffering. We desperately try to hold on to things that are constantly changing. We identify with a body that's aging and will eventually die. We cling to relationships that transform. We chase pleasures that fade. And all of this creates stress, anxiety, fear, and pain. But when you truly understand your origins, when you see that you've been through countless forms already, when you recognize that consciousness continues beyond any single lifetime, when you grasp that your essential nature isn't this particular body or personality, something shifts. You can start to hold your current existence more lightly, not with detachment in a cold way, but with appreciation mixed with non-clinging, like enjoying a beautiful sunset without trying to capture it and make it last forever. You appreciate this human life deeply, while also recognizing its temporary nature. This perspective transforms how you approach everyday challenges. That person who cut you off in traffic, they're on their own journey through samsara, shaped by their own karma, probably suffering in ways you can't see. That difficult family member? Same thing. That annoying coworker? Yep, them too. Everyone you meet is a consciousness that's been traveling through infinite time, taking on different forms, experiencing countless joys and sorrows, sometimes being your enemy, sometimes being your closest friend, or even family member in past lives. This understanding naturally cultivates compassion, and practical compassion, grounded in this understanding of our shared journey through existence, is one of the most powerful forces for positive change in the world. When you recognize that everyone wants to be happy and avoid suffering, just like you, and that everyone is struggling with the same basic existential challenges, just in different forms, it becomes harder to hate and easier to help. The Buddha's teaching on origins also helps with one of the biggest sources of suffering in modern life, the feeling that your existence is meaningless or purposeless. So many people today feel lost, like they're just randomly here with no real significance or direction. But Buddhism says no. You're not random at all. You're here because of countless causes and conditions. Your existence is the result of an incomprehensibly complex web of interconnected events stretching back through infinite time. And what you do now matters enormously because it's creating the causes and conditions for future experiences, both for yourself and for countless other beings. Your kindness to a stranger might prevent them from making a harmful choice that would have affected dozens of other people. Your decision to cultivate mindfulness might inspire someone watching you to seek peace in their own life. Your choice to speak truthfully in a difficult situation might shift the entire trajectory of events in ways you'll never fully know. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is meaningless. Every single moment, every single choice, every single intention sends ripples across the vast ocean of existence. You're not just a passive product of the past, you're an active creator of the future. And this brings us to maybe the most important practical application of understanding human origins from a Buddhist perspective. It empowers you to take complete responsibility for your life while also being gentle with yourself about your limitations. You didn't choose to be born with certain genetic predispositions or into certain circumstances. Those are the results of past karma. But you absolutely can choose how you respond to those conditions. You can choose whether to reinforce negative patterns or break them. You can choose whether to cultivate wisdom or remain in ignorance. You can choose whether to practice compassion or indulge in hatred. The path is right there in front of you. The Buddha didn't just describe where we come from and leave it at that. He provided detailed, practical instructions on how to work with these truths to achieve liberation. The Noble Eightfold Path, the practice of meditation, the cultivation of ethical conduct, the development of wisdom. These aren't just nice ideas, they're proven methods for transforming your experience of existence. Thousands upon thousands of people over 25 centuries have followed these practices and achieved profound peace, deep insight, and genuine liberation from suffering. Not because they were special or chosen, but because they understood the nature of existence and worked skillfully with it, and you can too. Right now, today, in whatever circumstances you find yourself. You don't need to wait for perfect conditions. You don't need special qualifications. You just need to understand where suffering comes from and make the choice to follow the path that leads beyond it. So when you ask where humans come from, Buddhism gives you this vast, cosmic answer that's simultaneously humbling and empowering. We come from beginningless time, from infinite cycles of universal expansion and contraction, from the gradual densification of consciousness into physical form, from countless past actions and intentions. But we're also going somewhere. We're heading either toward more suffering through ignorance and craving, or toward liberation through wisdom and letting go. And that choice, that direction, is being determined right now by what you think, say, and do in this very moment. This understanding should fill you with both urgency and patience. Urgency, because this human life is incredibly rare, and you don't know how long you have. Every day spent in distraction and mindlessness is a wasted opportunity. But also patience because you're working with patterns built up over countless lifetimes. Transformation takes time, effort, and consistent practice. You wouldn't expect to get physically fit by going to the gym once. You wouldn't expect to master a musical instrument after one practice session. In the same way, training your mind, purifying your intentions, and developing wisdom is a gradual process that requires sustained effort. But here's the beautiful part. Every step forward counts. Every moment of mindfulness matters. Every act of kindness creates positive karma. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep moving in the right direction. Keep making the effort. Keep choosing the path of wisdom over the path of ignorance. The Buddha's final words to his disciples were, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Work out your salvation with diligence." He didn't say wait for someone to save you. He didn't say it's too hard, so don't bother. He said you have everything you need. Now get to work. And that's ultimately what understanding human origins in Buddhism is really about. It's about recognizing that you're part of this vast, interconnected, ever-changing process, and that within that process you have the power to transform your experience through wisdom and ethical action. You're not a helpless victim of cosmic forces. You're not a random accident in a meaningless universe. You're a consciousness that's been journeying through infinite time and space. And right now, in this precious human form, you have the opportunity to wake up from the dream of separation and suffering. So what are you going to do with this incredible gift? How will you use this rare opportunity? The teachings are here. The path is clear. The choice is yours. And remember, the Buddha didn't ask anyone to just believe what he said. He invited people to test the teachings in their own experience. Try practicing mindfulness and see if it reduces your anxiety. Try cultivating compassion and see if it improves your relationships. Try letting go of attachments and see if it brings more peace. The proof isn't in ancient texts or philosophical arguments. The proof is in the transformation of your own heart and mind when you actually practice these teachings. You now know where you came from, according to this profound ancient wisdom. You now understand the vast cycles of existence and your place within them. You now recognize the preciousness of your human birth and the opportunity it represents. The only question remaining is, what will you do with this understanding? Will you go back to sleepwalking through life, caught up in temporary pleasures and meaningless distractions? Or will you wake up and start walking the path toward genuine freedom? The universe has been unfolding for countless ages, just to bring you to this exact moment where you have the capacity to understand these truths and the freedom to act on them. Don't waste it. Honor the incredible journey that brought you here by making your life count, by reducing suffering wherever you can, by cultivating wisdom and compassion, by moving steadily toward liberation. This is your origin. This is your opportunity. This is your path. Now walk it with courage, with mindfulness, with an open heart. The entire cosmos is supporting you in this journey. You're never alone because you're part of the infinite web of existence itself. And maybe, just maybe, understanding where you really come from will finally help you discover where you're truly meant to go. Not to some external heaven or perfect world, but to the peace and freedom that's been waiting inside you all along, beyond all the cycles, beyond all the forms, in the deathless, timeless nature of awakened consciousness itself. That's where you come from, that's where you're going, and that's who you really are beneath all the layers of conditioning and confusion. Welcome home. If this message resonated with you and opened your eyes to a different way of seeing yourself and your existence, do me a favor and like this video and subscribe to Buddhism Focus for more content that explores these profound teachings in accessible ways. Share this with someone who's searching for answers to life's big questions. Leave a comment about which part of this teaching impacted you most. Let's build a community of people who are serious about waking up and living with wisdom and compassion. The journey continues, and we're walking it together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and may you find the peace and freedom you're seeking.